That's a problem. Yeah, we have the effects on and you can't hear anything. So this is Bam Electric Ghost. So we started off a little ragged. So we're going to talk about our process. And one thing we're doing today, you might know that we're actually using a Zoom L8 podcast mixer and a 512 audio mic because we've got the ability to actually connect our cell phone to our mixer and then use a mic. So that's what's going on here. And we have, we're just playing with the volume on it. But one of the things we're working on is we are a podcaster on Anchor FM. You can go and check us out, Fam Electric Ghost. We're also on our YouTube channel, and we're on Twitch, and we're on Facebook, and we're even on Twitter, because we do a couple different things. We've been on Anchor FM since 2018, doing the podcast as an audio podcast, and in 2020 we switched over to, we didn't switch over, but we included StreamYard, which allows you to do video podcast simultaneously to multiple channels. So they, for a fee, which we pay, allow us to simulcast onto Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all at once when we go live. And we interview emerging artists from around the world. So if you want to get interviewed, we don't charge. We do ask that people subscribe to our YouTube, or if they want to help us out, they can hit the COVID support button on our Spotify or SoundCloud and donate whatever they want to keep the podcast free. Now, since 2018, we've interviewed 140 indie and emerging artists from around the world with a focus on women singer-songwriters. It's like 80% of the interviews. And it's been pretty interesting. We've interviewed people from Spain, like Gemma Alagua, and we're going to be doing an interview with Austrian DJ, EDM singer-songwriter producer Anoltra on Saturday morning. So that's pretty cool. And a lot of times that's a good example of what we do. We interview bands from Australia, UK, anywhere that we find music, and not just electronic music. We interview bands from Nashville. We've interviewed classical violinists and cellos and producers like Kevin Stratton, Grammy Award-winning producer, helped design the DX7 sound design, and also Billy Hume, who worked with Lil Jon, and the lead singer of the Goo Goo Dolls. So those are two Grammy Award-winning producers we talked to. So, our focus is talking to emerging and indie artists that we think need a kind of behind-the-music type of treatment, because we think, and our podcasts are kind of not what you typically hear. You hear a lot of podcasts are like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. We go like an hour. We go into pretty deep depth of like a behind the music classic album type of thing, where we go and we talk to people about how they construct their projects, how they create music, what their influences are. That's what we get into. Now, we've been working on a mega project for the last 2 years during COVID, a project that we called Catfished Da Hard Boyz, and it ended up being too unwieldy. It was like 9 hours long because we have a home studio and we just don't stop. So we created that much music, and then we said, well, that's not going to be manageable, but it's a big back catalog, and what are we going to do with it? So we're writing a blogger article, and it kind of started like we had this interesting situation. We had this backlog of music written during the pandemic, and the original idea, as I said, was to create this mega album called Catfished Da Hard Boyz, which is because this idea that, you're on the net and you get catfished by all these Bitcoin scammers and date scammers and all this stuff, and that's the concept of the album. So it's just close to somebody getting scammed in that way. So it's a concept album. So we spent the last 3 months trying to pull the gems out of the vault of this record and turn it into something else. Now, the full record, if you want to listen to the full 9 hours, is on our SoundCloud, which is Fam Electric Ghost, if you're into that. We created it. We listen to it all the time to try to pull stuff out. But so the first project that came out of this backlog, it releases August 26th, and it's called Peg Forever. And we we took it down from 9 hours to an hour and a half. Now, that's still kind of crazy today when people only want to listen to a 2-minute song. But, that's our tradition, which we'll get into what type of music we're into, it kind of dictates that we like to do the album format. So this is still a mega effort. And it has the best tracks from Catfish that were called for this 2022 album. And our sound style is called Expansive Sound. It's a combination of new wave, punk, fusion jazz, progressive rock, spoken word, experimental, and some grunge and a punk aesthetic with an industrial kind of electronica edge or new wave sound. So we're a DAWless producer. And a Digital Audio Workstation is a great tool that has reduced or eliminated the need to go into the studio and, taking that stranglehold off of creativity and allow many musicians, hip hop and EDM to go and do their own work in their own home studios and go out on the road without having to go through a studio controlled gate. But the other side of that is that the DAW tends to create perfect I'm popping a little bit. Perfect music that's a little too antiseptic for me, or too perfect. And my whole aesthetic is, I like the Velvet Underground. I like, Big Star's Third. I like fusion jazz. I like things that are kind of unpredictable, or Peter Gabriel Genesis. So the whole point of that is a lot of these things were recorded in traditional studios with kind of like a band actually put them together, or they made choices to keep the happy accidents in the mix. And so, that's a traditional kind of type of old style recording. You kind of, you played it over and over until you got what you wanted, or you went back and heard the original tape, or you spliced it around. And that's kind of DAW-like, taking a tape and cutting it around. But there's something different about taking analog tape and mixing it, or cutting it and reshaping it compared to what you do. Because there's going to be little timing errors, going to be problems. And sometimes it all works out, but the imperfections are what makes the music. It's like a painter, like the idea of sound painting. So we've been a DAWless producer for a long time because we like the idea like a stream of consciousness or a jam style recording. So a lot of our hardware synths are just directly connected. And so from the beginning of PEG, we used hardware recorders, starting with the Zoom R16 to the R24. Those are 16 and 24 track recorders. And then right now we're utilizing a live L8 live track recorder that we also use for finishing a Kai Force compositions. And now we're primarily using a Zoom R20, which is a multi-track, which gives you a little bit of a nod to digital audio, because you have a touch screen and you actually have stems that you can move around. And the R20 is kind of brilliant, and it takes the L series capability of the Zooms to take each input and put it to a stem or a clip. And so then within this hardware recorder, the touchscreen allows you to real-time record like a bass line, actually chop it up and then copy it, clone it, and move it around. Or you can just leave it the way it is. Or, you can move it around. You can change it from being in track position 1, 2 to track position 5. You can do a lot of different things. So it gives you the power at the instrument to just do DAW-like behavior, but you're doing it in real time right at the instrument. You can make the decision. Kind of like a workstation if you're using like a Korg Kronos or a Roland Phantom. Gives you that kind of power with different types of hardware. So instead of having like a big workstation like a Korg, Kronos, or a Phantom, I've got all these synths kind of all tied together. And my hardware setup, I've got like a DI box from Behringer to take headphone outputs from Moogs and Eurorack and normalize them so they can go into XLR. And then I've got an MX1 performance mixer, which allows me to take in USB, 1/4 inch and 1/8 of an inch lines, and take monophonic lines and convert them to stereo. And then my final solution, like I said, is the R20, which then takes in the feed, the stereo output of the MX1 and brings it in. And then, a lot of times, even on my Eurorack, I have a Eurorack Which our Eurorack solution is a rack boot from Arturia, the 6U, which is like a 2-tiered rack. And in that rack, we've got a Mother 32 from Moog with monophonic synth, a DFAM, a make noise morphogene, a make noise maths utility module, a make noise a malt system, and a Pittsburgh modular 4x2 VCA mixer, which allows us to take our Eurorack signals and actually control the volume before it comes out. So we've got a bunch of different ways to control our levels, from the DI box, increasing the gain on some analog instruments, to the 4x2 VCA mixer, allowing us to change the level of a Eurorack, and then bringing it into the MX1 and being able to apply effects to these signals and take monophonic signals and make them stereo. So I use hardware solutions to do what you normally would do in a DAW. You can take a monophonic and switch it to stereo, but I do it through hardware, which in my experience, I like the way it sounds better. This is my opinion. So a lot of what I do is doing all this manual work, and people say, well, you're making it harder than it has to be. And in some ways that might be true. But I enjoy the process. So that's my process. And there are a lot of people now, the reason why do you have Tascam 24s and Zoom R20s is there's a lot of people like me that do not want to be in the DAW, that want to do it outside the DAW. And even like another device like the Kai Force is another kind of DAWless wonder. It's a kind of MPC based machine, but it has all these a really powerful sequencer that basically allows you to write songs. And when you're in the actual arranger mode, you can write songs. And I use it in combination with this live track Zoom, where the Zoom is used to do the vocals, and then everything else is being done through the Kai. And the Kai is a great I/O device, because I've actually got, I've hooked a Moog grandmother up to it and brought it in and used the pads to do different arrangements that you couldn't do on the keyboard, which is really cool about having a 64 key touchpad, is you can do things that you physically can't play on the piano. So you can make really interesting arrangements that you could never do on a piano because you can't do it. And then the other thing is I've got a Roland Boutique JD08, which is really fantastic. And there's a lot of new songs that we've done with that on this album, which is the first album that we're talking about out of this Catfish collection is Peg Forever. And then the next album that came out of this is an unreleased album that kind of shows our love for new wave and punk. Because we were a big fan of bands like Joy Division and The Clash and Depeche Mode and Husker Du and The Replacements, and this idea of taking new wave and then colliding punk and grunge with it, and we call it trash wave. So it's got a punk aesthetic, but it's kind of rooted in like a Joy Division kind of dark wave type of sound. And even like the Velvet Underground is an influence, and the Big Star's Third is an influence. But the idea of taking that punk aesthetic and that dark kind of, and then the punk power, the chord power of a punk band like the Sex Pistols or Husker Du or The Replacements, Black Flag, any of those type of bands. But then mixing the new wave nature of a New Order or a Depeche Mode into it. So that's where Trash Wave came up. And Trash Wave is a combination of a couple of songs that were from a aborted album called Dark Ghost from 2017, with a song called Fifth With You, which uses a really interesting Juno polyphonic pad that has a very deep new wave sound, and then on top of it is a JDXI kind of synth lead that has a lot of vibrato on it, and it's very interesting. And then we use a vocoder off the JDXI, and the JDXI has a very interesting vocoder we've used for a while, but we actually use it as a true vocoder, actually taking key presses and matching vocals to notes and a traditional kind of vocoder keyboard arrangement. Typically on the JDXI, we introduced the world to Josephine Electric, which is a enhanced vocal, pitch of my vocal, the soprano mode created the character And part of Phantom Electric Ghost is the idea of the band is a collection of ghosts. They decided to create a band, and then the whole world doesn't really realize they're ghosts. They just think they're in stage costumes because, it could be. But they're actually really phantoms. And that's the idea. It's kind of like the idea of the Gorillas. You make a kind of made-up band. But the only other thing is, when I play, I'm usually a one-person band. I have all this gear, and I can go and do it like a one-person effort. In the past, I have had guitar players come out with me, and I have collaborated with other musicians, like on the album To Infinitum with All Control K. And I'm hoping to be working with a couple other artists this year. We got some projects that kind of started and stopped in the middle of planning. So we're always into that. So one thing, people would listen to my sound. If you're into what we do, again, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Phantom Electric Ghost. That would help us out. Also, if you want to help us with our interviews, we do have to pay our StreamYard fees of like $50 a month. If you could donate to our COVID support buttons on SoundCloud, Phantom Electric Ghost, or Spotify, that keeps our interviews free. We never charge anything. We just ask people to subscribe to our YouTube channel as help monetize the channel. So Trash Wave, it doesn't have a release date. We're still writing songs for it. Right now it's only like a 45-minute album, and maybe we'll stop, but we tend to come up with new ideas all the time. So we're hoping that people will check out the pre-saves available for Peg Forever. We've got a bunch of pre-saves out there. You can check it out on our website. We have a website called phantomelectricghost.com. You can just go right there. You can read our blogger articles, which range from articles about our music to pushing our interviews. We'll actually have the links to our YouTube channel and a write-up about the current interviews I did. I think the most recent interview I did with Gemma Alagua is out there. And as long as, all the other interviews I've done in the last couple months are out there. So you can check it out. You can read about it a little bit and then hit the link and it'll bring you right to the interview on YouTube. But we're also on Spotify video podcast. And if people didn't know, there are video podcasts on Spotify, and we're part of that program. So you can check us out there, and we appreciate if you do, because it pushes our numbers up. And we're also on Twitch. So if you go and check out our Twitch channel, we're going to be working on a campaign to push our Twitch numbers up. We have been kind of neglecting that audience and not really pushing it out and letting people know we're there. So we're going to work on that, as well as our YouTube promotion, trying to get it bigger. Now, we range sometimes from like 1,000 to 2,000 to 5,000 views on our podcast. So if you're an artist again and you want to get interviewed, we have a whole pitch. You can contact us on our Instagram, which is Phantom Electric Ghost, or on our bigger Instagram. It has over 10,000, almost 11,000 followers, is Expansive_Sound_Experiments, which is the name of our label. But we're actually going to change the name of our music from Expansive Sound Experiments to Expansive Sound Music, because we think, it's not experiment. We started off with the idea that it's experimental, but we want to really point out that it's music. It's not just experimental music. So the record label from now on is going to be called Expansive Sound Music. But the actual Instagram is Expansive_Sound_Experiments. But the easier one to go to is Phantom Electric Ghost, all one word. And you can do a direct message if you want to be on the air with us. We do ask you, part of the requirement to be on the video podcast is you need a PC, laptop, or Mac with a Chrome web browser, headphones, a mic. External mic is good, but you can use the internal, and good Wi-Fi. We do a 10-15 minute check a week before the podcast, or sometimes the day of the podcast. And it's done by sending you the link. You don't have to be on StreamYard as a subscriber. The link just kicks it off. We do a pre-test to check out your signal and make sure that you understand how it's going to go. We do have sponsors that we mention to let you know. Right now we have Double Jack Online, and we also work with Newsly which is an iOS app that actually hosts a podcast where they actually read the news back to you in a natural human voice. And you can use coupon code GHOST2021. GHOST2021. Check out Newsly on iOS or Android, and they read the news back to you in a natural human voice so you can multitask. So that's all for today. And we'll figure out when we're going to put Trash Wave out. But check out Peg Forever. The sound, the actual pre-saves you can find on the Fam Electric Ghost website. And appreciate it if you hit the pre-saves out there. And we'll talk to you later. This is Fam Electric Ghost, and Newsly is an audio app for iOS and Android. It picks up web articles about the most trending topics on the web at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice. So for the first time in history on the net, the web becomes listenable. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing, stop scrolling, start listening. They have podcasts as well, so explore trending podcasts from over 40 countries. Our podcast, the Fam Electric Ghost podcast, is on there too, so download and use Newsly for free now from www.newsly.me. So that's www.newsly.me, and that's NEWSLY, And so use the promo code GHOST2021 and receive a 1 month free premium subscription. So like that's a pretty cool deal. So all you got to do is use GHOST2021 and you get a 1 month free premium subscription to Newsly. Check it out. You'll like it. I listen to it every day and it's really great. Thank you. And keep on listening to Peg and everything else on Anchor FM and Spotify podcast. Thank you.